I popped the question to my boyfriend on my brand new fishing boat, but he totally slapped me in front of everyone. I was dreaming of a fancy yacht, and you brought me this old, beat up fishing boat? As I watched him walk away, I just went quiet. Little did he know, a colossal, never ending storm was about to hit the world, and everything was going to be underwater. Now, about my so called shabby fishing boat, I shelled out $8 million for it, custom built to masquerade as a high end yacht. On proposal day, the sky was crystal clear. The sunlight sparkled on the blue ocean, dancing with the waves. At that moment, my slightly rough around the edges fishing boat was quietly moored at the pier, looking kinda out of place next to all the luxury yachts. From the cabin, I peeked out and saw a few young folks guiding my boyfriend, Noah, onto the boat. I gave the setup one last look. Roses, candles, balloons, cake, red wine. Everything was perfect. I woke up super early to arrange it all. To get Noah's favorite cake, I even biked 5 kilometers after moving a candle to cover up a spot where the paint had chipped. I turned to see Noah standing outside the cabin. Seeing his familiar face took me back. It had been 10 years. I never thought I'd see him again. It was like I was reborn from my past life. I didn't even get a chance to propose before that never-ending storm hit. At first, it was just heavy typhoon rain, and nobody cared. But soon the rain clouds covered everything until satellites couldn't see any blue left, and the rain never stopped. The sea level skyrocketed, flooding the land. Every building on land was swallowed up instantly. I was helping Daniel fish when it started, so luckily we survived on his boat. But Noah, who was in the city, wasn't so lucky. For the past 10 years without Noah, I missed him every single day, until resources ran dry and fishing became impossible. Eventually, Daniel's boat got overrun, and I was thrown into the sea, ending my gloomy days. Luckily, I'm back to a point where everything can still be saved. First thing I did was count my assets. Turns out, my house and my parents' inheritance totaled $30 million. So I started networking, treating and gifting people at the Weather Bureau, pulling some strings. I confirmed that this life's satellite images showed the same weird signs as before. Without hesitation, I turned that $30 million into cash. Now, the fishing boat in front of me might seem plain, even shabby, but it's actually an $8 million custom disguised top-tier yacht. Over those 10 years, a lot of memories faded. I only remember that at the apocalypse's start, all those flashy yachts became looters' targets. Meanwhile, older, worn-out fishing boats stayed adrift, battered by wind and waves, getting ignored. Uncle Daniel and I survived because of one of those boats for 10 years. Now, my boat looks just like them on the outside. Unless you look closely, no one would guess how deep it really is. Inside, there's tons of space, loaded with all the essential living supplies. I planned it all out so that once the storm hits, as long as I set sail with Noah, we can live peacefully. This proposal was part of the plan, too. I wanted to give Noah a grand wedding before the apocalypse began. After all, who knows if his friends will survive? I proposed on the boat because I clearly remember when we first met, Noah said he always envied his buddy's girlfriend's yacht. He often talked about wanting a boat to sail the seas. Now, I have the boat, and I'm proposing to him on it. He's got to be thrilled. And if Noah sees the luxe interior below deck, he'll be blown away. Just as I refocused, Noah was led to the center of a heart-shaped rose petal arrangement. Where are we going? Is this a yacht? I could hear seagulls. I adjusted my dress and approached him. Noah, you can take off the blindfold now. Watching him eagerly remove it, I tightened my grip on the bouquet, knelt with a ring, and said, "In these 3 years together, I always thought of today. Remember when you said you wanted a yacht? Today I spent most of what I have to buy this boat. I promise to take you wherever you want to go. Noah, will you marry me?" Noah looked at me, eyes wide with surprise. Then it was like something clicked, and he glanced around. I watched him eagerly, trying to catch every reaction. But instead of excitement, Noah's face shifted from joy to disbelief as he scanned the cabin. "Olivia, are you kidding?" I was stunned. "No, I'm serious." Seeing my serious face, Noah's expression cooled. He pointed around, not believing it. "You're calling this a yacht?" I glanced around and smiled, assuring him. "It really is a yacht. Don't judge it by its appearance." As I spoke, Noah's friend walked in, covering his nose and looking around disdainfully. "Noah, your girlfriend really loves you. The boat's shabby, but it's better than those North Harbor fishing boats. You're always saying she has millions in inheritance, so why is it hard to buy a yacht? Why fool you with this rundown fishing boat? Noah's face darkened instantly. Olivia, I wanted a yacht, not some rusty old fishing boat. Faced with Noah's changed demeanor, I quickly explained, Noah, it's not what you think. Let me explain. This boat, I actually bought it for $8 million. Let me show you. Before I could finish, a woman who had been standing at the door for a while walked in. Her eyes locked on Noah, and then she looked around at the roses and candles in my cabin with a smirk. Oh, proposing, are we? I recognized her. Sophia. She was a rich girl who owned the biggest yacht at the dock. We once argued because Daniel's fishing boat was parked next to hers. To keep Daniel's business smooth, I chose to stay out of it and move my boat. We hadn't crossed paths since, but here she was again. 8 million? I did hear someone ordered an 8 million yacht, but from what I heard, it's massive and doesn't sound like your dingy fishing boat. As she spoke, she ran her fingers along the cabin wall, still tacky with wet paint. Nice, Olivia. The paint's not even dry, she chuckled, pulled a handkerchief from her pocket to wipe her hand, and tossed it on the floor. Then she turned to Noah. Hey, handsome, pick your girlfriend wisely. Being poor is one thing, but pretending to be rich? This boat with fresh paint. Aren't you worried about the formaldehyde? The guys behind her couldn't hold it in anymore, laughing hysterically. An 8 million fishing boat? What a joke. Noah, where'd you pick up this girlfriend from the trash? Noah's face turned various shades of red and blue. He couldn't hold back anymore and slapped me. Olivia, I can't believe you lied like this. Do you think I'm stupid? This crummy boat isn't worth even a fraction of that small yacht next door. And you dragged me here to propose and let your friends laugh at me? Hearing this, I finally got it. With a bleak expression, I looked at the guy in front of me. Noah, you're not going to hear my side? Noah just laughed, then looked at me like I was trash. What else is there to explain? The peeling paint or this ring? Enough, Olivia. Get some self-awareness. You're so tight-fisted. If people didn't think you had money, who'd be with you? I thought you'd propose somewhere grand, but after 3 years, you bring me here on a rotten fishing boat. You go live with your shabby boat. I don't want to see you again. He ripped the bouquet from my hand, tossed it on the floor, stomped on it, and walked off. I looked down at the flowers, my heart sinking. At that moment, I realized how ridiculous I'd been these past 10 years. My proposal just ended. I squatted, looking at everything I'd set up in the cabin, lost in thought. I told you he's trouble, but you didn't listen. Hearing the voice, I looked up to see a scruffy boy entering the cabin. This boy was Leo, just 18. Daniel had mentioned he was a stray orphan around the docks. He used to live with his grandma, but after she passed, he's been alone. Never went to school, just helping carry things for money. He'd become familiar with us after helping Daniel out often. Sometimes he'd warn me, saying he often saw Noah at the docks. I never took it seriously until now. This dock was full of rich people's yachts. Daniel's fishing boat didn't frequent here. Seeing Noah here meant he wasn't coming for me. Leo picked up the crushed roses, sorting through them until he held up a somewhat intact bunch. Look, it still works. Give it to another guy. That man's not worth it. Someone else? The world's ending soon. No time for that. 10 years wasted on a dog. I sighed deeply, shook off the sorrow, dusted off my clothes, and stood up. The flowers are yours. Play with them. Leo wrinkled his nose in disdain. Can't eat them. No thanks. He said he didn't want them, but still held the bouquet, his eyes scanning and landing on a fancy cake nearby. Laughing at the glint in his eyes, I said, if you want it, have it. Leo probably never had cake before. My kindness made him hesitate. Isn't this your proposal cake? I shook my head, tidying up the candles. If you don't eat it, I'll throw it out. Upon hearing that, Leo quickly hugged the cake. I'll eat. As I cleaned the boat, Leo devoured the cake. After a while, he sighed, looking around. Sis, your boat's got a deep draft. Is it for cargo running? I paused mid-sweep. Is it that obvious? Leo wiped his mouth and turned to me. They're saying cargo running isn't profitable anymore. A lot of fishing boats up north are switching to online business, streaming, and connecting directly with fishermen. They're making a lot. Why don't you try that, sis? Just running cargo's not gonna make much. Surprised, I looked at him. He didn't have much schooling, but seemed to grasp business smarts. Though he looked at me with concern, I frowned. Even he was worrying about my future. Noah's dissatisfaction wasn't new. Propping myself on the broom, I gazed at Leo, perplexed. Really, kid? Do I look that incapable? Leo, munching on cake, rolled his eyes and quickly waved his hands. No, no, sis. You're smart, capable, and so understanding. I just scoffed at his nonsense. I glanced at Leo with his face smeared in whipped cream and had a thought. You say lots of fishing boats are now doing online streaming? So is anyone still delivering? Leo thought about it and shook his head. Maybe a couple in the North Port, but almost none in the South Port. I rubbed my chin and said, Hey, little bro, can you do me a favor? What kind of favor? I chuckled. I've got a bunch of goods coming in over the next few days. They'll be brought to the port, and I need you to help check and sign for them. I'll pay you this much each day. I showed him a gesture. Leo widened his eyes in disbelief, wiped the cream off his face with his sleeve, and nodded immediately. Don't worry, sis. I got this. Actually, after being reborn, not only do I have memories from my previous life, but I also have infinite space that can preserve freshness. I originally thought after this proposal, Noah and I would start stockpiling supplies. We could split up and get everything we needed before the apocalypse. Surprisingly, Leo ended up helping with the chores. But it's good that it's Leo. He's been around the docks all his life and is really sharp. He knows I want to keep a low profile, so he never mentions my name. Even if someone asks, he just says a big boss brought him along. With this level of cover, I started ordering goods from all over. To ensure food supply at the start, I ordered lots of ready-cooked dishes from restaurants. I also ordered hundreds of steamed buns and meat pies from over a dozen breakfast places. Stuff like buns and pies, filled with meat, veggies, and dough, are luxury items in the apocalypse. In the post-apocalyptic world, a bun the size of an adult hand can be traded for 3 3-pound fish. Even though seawater floods the land, the fish move deeper and are harder to catch, so an ordinary family can only afford buns during New Year by buying flour and meat themselves, not by buying ready-made ones. Once I had enough cooked dishes stored, I got 1,000 tons of bottled mineral water and various basic supplies like rice, flour, grain, and oil. With enough money, even restricted medicines can be secured. I went ahead and paid for connections, placing orders with major pharmaceutical companies to ensure I had the necessary post-apocalyptic medicines. In the apocalypse, there's constant rain and seawater floods the land, leaving no place to grow crops. So vegetables and meat crazily turn into luxury items. But who knows? Post-apocalyptic weather might improve after 10 years. If the land emerges again, wouldn't these animals and crops continue to thrive? Can this space store living things since it can preserve freshness? To test the space's stability, I bought a live fish by the sea and put it in the space. Checked it 3 days later, and it was still swimming, so I felt at ease. Then I contacted farms to buy cows, pigs, sheep, and 100 chickens and ducks for breeding. I also bought several truckloads of fresh vegetables and fruits for the future. Over a month, Leo and I were so busy, we barely touched the ground. By day, he'd sign for countless goods. By night, I'd sneak to the docks, moving everything into my space. The stockpiling efficiency was through the roof. One day, I went to inspect shipments at the ports and unexpectedly spotted a yacht returning from the sea. The yacht docked, and much to my surprise, Noah, who I hadn't seen for a month, stepped off. He wore swim trunks with a sunblock shirt and had an arm around someone's waist. I looked up, and there she was, Sophia, who'd mocked me during my proposal. Noah turned away when he saw me, while Sophia strutted over with a grin to stir things up. Oh, if it isn't the $8 million, girl, what big business are you running here? She picked up a dropped manifest and squinted at it. 5,000 boxes of sausages, 5,000 of canned meat, 5,000 of instant noodles. Wow, are you opening a supermarket? Laughter echoed from the group behind Sophia. Ignoring them, I tried to leave but was blocked by Sophia's friend. Don't go. Chat with us about this big business, will ya? Noah, aren't you curious what your $8 million girl is doing? With all my focus on ordering goods lately, I looked a mess. Noah glanced me up and down, smirked. What big business? She's likely using fishing boats for cargo, unlike you, Sophia, being more generous. As he spoke, Noah raised his hand, revealing an expensive watch worth tens of thousands. I silently laughed at the irony, Soon, when the apocalypse strikes, luxury like this won't trade for a single bread piece. But now he's flaunting it like a treasure. Seeing me smirk, Sophia's friend pushed me. What are you laughing at? Think you're better than us? I turned to Noah. Noah, you sure move fast. Looks like I held you back from getting a rich patron. Noah glared. You? Sophia stepped up to hit me. You're asking for it. That's when a cart loaded with goods came charging in sideways. Make way, make way. Can't you see I'm working here, Sophia? About to hit me, Sophia got jostled back several steps. Awkwardly, Sophia's friend cursed loudly. Who the hell do you think you are, bumping into us? Leo replied, Who you calling? Nobody, the friend spat. I'm calling you nobody. After a bit of realizing something was off, they all burst into laughter. Finally aware of the situation, the friend got angry, raising a hand to hit. Seeing the slap aiming for Leo, I grabbed his arm in defense. Enough is enough. When Sophia saw me stepping up, she got the gist immediately. She glanced at Leo, who was huddled up on one side. Noticing his dirty clothes and frail appearance, she couldn't help but smirk slyly. Even this is okay? Olivia really isn't picky, huh? Seeing Leo being mocked, I immediately frowned. Sophia, we've always stayed out of each other's business. Don't start now. Sophia seemed to think it was the biggest joke ever and burst out laughing, then leaned toward me. What did you say? I didn't catch that. Sophia seemed to think it was hilarious and leaned in again. Want to repeat it? I glanced at the date on my phone, then chuckled, tucked my phone back into my pocket, and without giving Sophia time to react, I swung and slapped her hard across the face. That hit was so strong, I stumbled and almost fell to the ground. Sophia didn't expect me to throw hands, and her cronies stood there dumbfounded for a moment before snapping back to reality and rushing forward. Leo immediately dropped the truck and shielded me, readying himself for a fight, but I yanked him back by his collar. I calmly surveyed the scene, then pulled Leo down with me. I fished out my phone, opened up a game. As the startup sound played, her cronies exchanged puzzled looks. A second later, a group of burly workers loading goods at the dock suddenly dropped everything and sprinted toward us. The closest one rushed and knocked out 2 of Sophia's teeth with a single punch. Compared to a bunch of nobodies, these workers seemed trained. Pretty soon, Sophia and her crew were pinned to the ground. Trembling, Sophia picked up her teeth, glaring at me in disbelief. Do you even know who I am? I tossed the phone to Leo to continue the game and squatted down, grabbing Sophia by her hair with a sneer. I don't care who you are. Didn't I say don't cause trouble? Why didn't you listen? Under her terrified gaze, I slammed her head into the ground again. Keep going. Yes, boss. Seeing everyone get hit so badly, they were crying for their moms. Noah screeched and tried to flee, but he was grabbed and pinned too. I didn't hit them. I just made sure they couldn't call for backup. After all, it's still illegal to beat people up nowadays. Watching Noah begging for mercy in front of me, I ignored him and looked up at the already cut security camera. Figuring enough time had passed, I finally shouted for them to stop. The group staggered to their feet, warily eyeing the burly guys. Sophia didn't dare say a word, and with a nudge from her lackeys, dashed off without even looking back for Noah. As I watched Noah limp away miserably behind them, I let out a cold snort, pulled out some cash from my pocket, and handed it to the workers. These guys were hired from a security company to secretly protect Leo. For a kid like Leo receiving that much merchandise, it was easy to get targeted, so I planned ahead. I thought they'd just be hands on deck, didn't expect they'd actually be needed. The workers exchanged looks as they took the bills. Boss, this is too much. I shook my head and glanced at the distant figures. It's not too much. With a week left on your contract, finish this job right and there'll be bonuses. It's all cash. The security firm won't trace it. They straightened up immediately. Thanks, boss. As everyone returned to work, Leo acted like nothing happened and continued pushing the cart toward the dock, but I stopped him. What were you thinking just now, charging at them when it's 10 against 1? Leo frowned. I saw it from a distance. The lead was that woman from the other day on your ship. They weren't friendly. You couldn't handle them alone. I chuckled. I couldn't take them. But you could? Leo retorted. In times like that, you gotta get at least one of them. Didn't expect those workers were your people. Guess I worried for nothing. I sighed. If it weren't for knowing the apocalypse was near, I wouldn't have risked it. Next time, don't be so impulsive. They provoke us, but they might not really make a move. We have more important things. If you can avoid them, just avoid them. Leo huffed. But they're gonna hit you. I couldn't just watch. Besides, even though you said no hitting, you still made them run like dogs. Whatever, you're awesome. I won't meddle with you again. This was the first time anyone stood up for me. Watching the skinny boy walk away, I grinned and casually said, "Cake?" In a second, the angry boy paused, turned, and grinned foolishly at me. "Cheesy chocolate cake." I didn't just buy a cheesy chocolate cake, I ordered over 100 different cakes from various bakeries across the city and had them delivered in batches to store up. I asked Leo what else he wanted. Leo took me into the grocery store, pointing to almost every snack and drink he hadn't tried. I looked at all the assorted goodies and nodded, speaking to the manager to pack one of each. I drove the tricycle myself, hauling 7 or 8 boxes to Leo's place. Leo lived in an old house his grandma left. Despite the rundown condition, Leo kept it clean and tidy. I moved the snack boxes inside, then checked the time. 3 days left until the apocalypse, and most supplies were stocked. Time to say goodbye. At the door, I spotted a picture of an elderly lady on a small table with 3 incense sticks lit in front. I paused and turned to see Leo eagerly opening boxes for snacks. "Hey, anything else you want to eat? I'll take you out." Leo was just about to tear open a bag of chips when his eyes lit up. "I want hot pot," I laughed. "Sure." I took Leo to the hottest hot pot place in town and settled his wages while we were at it. "Sis, remember to call me if there's more like this?" As I helped him with the meats, I casually asked, "Do you know how to drive a fishing boat?" Leo thumped his chest and said, "Of course I do. Got a license?" Nope." "So that's driving without a license, huh?" Leo pouted and continued eating. I looked at him thinking for a while. "Bro, there's another load on the other ship tomorrow that needs inventorying. Same pay as before." Leo perked up at the sound of money. "I'm in." I looked at him seriously, then handed him a slip of paper. "This is the address of the cargo ship. Make sure to go tomorrow, or I'll find someone else." "Don't worry, sis. I'll be there bright and early." Leo glanced at the address, beaming. "Sis, you're the best with these 2 gigs. I'll have enough for tuition." I paused. "Why are you thinking about school?" He rested his chin on his hand. "My grandma said people need education to have a future. I dropped out early, but there are private institutions I can attend, though they're pricey." Watching Leo carefully stash the address, my feelings were mixed, but I said nothing and piled the cooked meat onto his plate. His eyes lit up at the sight, and he started devouring the meat, even ordering a few beers. Seeing him pop the caps with ease and start chugging, I stopped him. "Easy on the drinks, there's still a lot of meat left." To my surprise, Leo downed a bottle, wiped his mouth. "Sis, you don't get it. There's a separate stomach for beer and meat." Watching the young man enjoy his meal, I smiled. But after smiling, I felt uneasy. I knew this would probably be our last time seeing each other. I considered asking him to come with me. But the post-apocalyptic world was brutal. Helping someone puts them at risk. Unless you're like Daniel, who's practically family, I'd never take anyone along. All I could do was prepare a supply-filled fishing boat for him. Surviving would be up to his own fortune. As for Daniel, I'd already reached out to him before. He's stubborn, and when I subtly suggested he stay with me for a few days, he clung to his fishing boat like a lifeline, insisting he was too busy fishing to join me. I knew unless the apocalypse was really upon us, he'd never abandon his boat for me. Since he wouldn't come, I didn't push it. In the past, he was a master fisherman, surviving a decade at sea with his boat. This time wouldn't be much different. I still stocked a fair bit of supplies, tricked into storing it on his boat for safekeeping. Once the storm calms, I'll meet up and bring him on board. Leo, besides being a bit of a glutton, is genuinely loyal. But without having experienced the horrors of a dog-eat-dog world, there's no telling what might happen. This time, I couldn't take any risks. Leo seemed a bit tipsy, raising his glass here again. "Sis, I wish you big fortune." I lowered my eyes but raised my glass too. "I wish you always have cake." Leo laughed, downing another bottle. That night, I got Leo home despite his drunken state. He collapsed onto his bed and passed out without any drunken antics. Outside, I turned to 2 security guards I had arranged earlier. "Watch him overnight. Call me if anything happens." "Absolutely, boss. Not even a fly's getting through." Leaving Leo secure, I returned to my fishing boat. The sky was pitch black, and the moon over the ocean was veiled by clouds. I gazed at the dim moonlight, sighing, knowing it'd be hard to see it in the future. Back at the dock, I nodded to the security on duty, then headed straight to my boat. I had people watching shifts near the boat as well. I was this cautious, fearing Sophia might show up. But ever since that day, Sophia hadn't reappeared, either scared off or licking her wounds. I wouldn't have confronted her otherwise, just biding my time to leave after the week. But Sophia's not one to let things go. Better to incapacitate her now than face trouble later. If she wants to settle scores post-apocalypse, let her survive first. Not dwelling on her, I went to check the parts of my yacht. On the outside, this rust bucket looked just like Daniel's, with nothing special. I finally understood why Noah was so mad. Vanity aside, my ship didn't look like much. From the outside, no one would think it's worth 80 grand, let alone 8 million. Walking around the boat, I confirmed I was alone before locking myself in the control room. I lifted the chair seat, revealing a staircase entry. A warm orange glow lit up the stairs as a gentle AI voice greeted me. Olivia, welcome back to the Smart A33 fully automated yacht cockpit. Air humidity adjusted to 40%, indoor air purification system active, oxygen level normal, simulated sunlight system active, yacht self-powering system, all systems go. With each step down, the room lit up entirely. Breathing in the purified air without a hint of sea salt, I nodded in satisfaction. The A33 yacht. I first heard about it post-apocalypse. People said the wealthiest had one, surviving comfortably during those harsh times. I'd heard the materials used on this yacht are military grade. It even has a unique sun simulation system and a self-power generation system, super handy in an apocalypse. During the 10-year-long rainstorm, almost everyone on board had some degree of rheumatism. Everyone I saw had a pale and clammy complexion. Only the rich could buy firewood to dry themselves off. Back then, a pound of wood could be exchanged for 3 bags of rice. If you couldn't even get enough to eat, you were wet all the time, which was just miserable. Before the apocalypse, this yacht wasn't that impressive. After all, who would sunbathe on a yacht if the sun was shining daily? And with sea air being generally fresh, who would care about the yacht's internal humidity or air freshness? So, when I found it, it was still sitting in the richest guy's private harbor, blending in with all the other yachts. Because of its price, it dropped from 8 million to 7.5 million, and the company almost went bankrupt. Once I learned this, I used my connections to have the company make a custom one for me. Considering the post-apocalyptic scenarios, I paid an additional $50,000 for modifications. I added a fishing boat shell over the top of the yacht. If needed, the yacht could even detach from the fishing boat and sail away. I grabbed a bottle of water from the packed fridge and sat on the couch to turn on the TV. Though the yacht only had 2 levels, it was pretty spacious inside. It had 3 bedrooms, 1 master and 2 guest rooms. The master bedroom even had its own bathroom, very private. The kitchen was on the west side of the 2nd floor. It was small, with an integrated induction cooker and electric grill, and its exhaust hood was directly connected to an air purification system, preventing any oil fumes from leaking out. Cooking aromas from a fishing boat could quickly surround you with people, so the purification system was a lifesaver. There was also a built-in steam oven below. Even though I'm not much of a cook, it seemed pretty convenient. I even downloaded some recipes, planning to work on my cooking skills in the post-apocalypse. The fridge was in the 2nd floor dining room. It was small, only a 2-door, but with storage options, I mostly stocked everyday drinks and food without crowding it. But the yacht's standout features were a party room and a gym. It was initially marketed for entertainment, so the party room was bigger than the master bedroom. It had a pool table, computer setup, a 2-seater sofa, and karaoke gear. The gym was a little smaller, but had a full set of equipment and a punching bag setup. Just seeing it got my adrenaline pumping. I took in every corner of the yacht, then settled into the living room to watch some pre-downloaded movies. I exhaled deeply. Everything was set, just waiting for the typhoon to hit. But I probably wouldn't encounter the typhoon. I'm leaving the harbor early tomorrow morning to reach an area without a storm. The seawater flood would occur 3 days later. Leo would make it if he remembered to work tomorrow. I was dozing off on the couch when suddenly my phone rang. It startled me, and I picked it up to hear a slightly nervous voice. "Boss, there's a bunch of people gathered outside this kid's place. The 2 of us might not handle it." It was Sophia. I woke up instantly and pulled out a black object from under the couch, tucking it into my waistband. Hold tight, I'm on my way. The gun was sourced by the head of my security team, Liam. He had a history in northern Myanmar. I had asked him jokingly about getting one, and he initially laughed it off. But with more money, all in cash, he began to rethink. A while later, during a shipment, he discreetly handed me a small box. Inside was a modified Beretta 92 with a silencer. It also had 100 rounds and some custom holster accessories. Clearly, this wasn't legit merchandise. We tested the gun one night, and once I was satisfied it worked, I didn't hesitate to give him $10,000 in cash. With 3 days left, money wasn't worth much anymore. Post-apocalypse, keeping the sea secure would be tough. Even with a hidden yacht, encounters with pirate ships were possible, so I had to be prepared. Under the cover of darkness, I rushed to Leo's place and indeed found a group brawling. The two at the front were injured but hadn't let anyone in. We charged in. Though there were many of them, they were just thugs. My trained security quickly subdued them all. Checking them one by one, I didn't see Sophia anywhere. Not just Sophia, even her underlings were missing. I pulled one of the guys up and pressed the gun to his head. "Where's Sophia?" He seemed unwilling to talk, but caved at the sight of the gun barrel. At the dock." The dock? In my hurry, I had brought most of my men here, hoping for a face-off with Sophia. Turns out it was a diversion. Just then, Liam, who was stationed at the dock, called. "Olivia, Sophia, and her crew have hooked your boat onto their yacht. They're saying they'll take it to some unsafe waters." I chuckled. Sophia really knows how to piss someone off. Since they couldn't operate my boat due to the system lock, they came up with this. Knowing her, she wouldn't just tow it. She'd probably trash it too. But they didn't know the fishing boat was already busted. I hadn't spent 50 grand for nothing. The fishing boat's power system was all dependent on the hidden yacht. They couldn't operate the yacht, so smashing the fishing boat wouldn't help. Plus, with the yacht's GPS, I could track it wherever they threw it. Dragging such a heavy boat out of the area, I wasn't even sure if her yacht had enough fuel to get back. I looked up at the sky, slowly getting covered with dark clouds. "I got it, Liam. Your contract ends today. I've left the bonus in the safe in the third container at the dock. I'll text you the code. You and your guys can go grab it." "Don't worry, sis. I'll handle the rest myself. It's been a pleasure working with you." Hearing that, Liam said decisively, "All right, it's been a pleasure. Reach out if you need anything in the future." After he spoke, Liam didn't hang up. Squinting, I asked, "Anything else?" "Olivia." I raised an eyebrow. "Go on." Grinding his teeth, Liam continued, "Olivia, I heard Sophia has guns on her ship too. A buddy of mine said Sophia's secretly collected countless weapons. She's even got a weapon stash under her yacht, and every time she's out on the islands, she hunts." "You're alone." I paused at his words, understanding his warning. I chuckled. "I know what I'm doing, thanks." I hung up, let the gang leave, and then sent all the security back to report to Liam. Once everyone was gone, I turned and entered Leo's place, hoisting the boy, reeking of alcohol and sound asleep, onto a cargo tricycle. Just as I was about to leave, something struck me. I went back, gathered the snacks I had brought for him earlier, and carried them out too. Finally, I glanced at the black and white photo on the table and the incense burner, bowing to his grandma's picture. Then, I packed everything from the altar into boxes and loaded them onto the trike. Leo, surrounded by boxes, was in a deep sleep as I started the bike toward a fishing village on the west side of the South Harbor. I drove fast. The hot air mixed with a salty wetness hit my face. The smell was all too familiar after living with it for 10 years. The typhoon might arrive by morning, starting as a light drizzle, but no one would know that once it starts, it'd only get heavier. Ugh. "Sis, why's the sky so dark?" "Where? Where are we headed?" Leo, woken by the wind, clung to the side of the tricycle and asked groggily, "We're heading to the fishing boat I mentioned." "Huh? Starting work in the middle of the night?" "Yeah, it's urgent." The tricycle zipped through the fishing village near South Harbor, stopping right beside the dock. Unlike the spiffy South Harbor, this pier was used often by fishermen. The dock was old and falling apart, its wood corroded and in bad shape. The boat I had set up for Leo was hidden among a bunch of other worn-down fishing boats, unremarkable. Just looking at that boat made me exhale deeply. Good thing I'd set up a backup for Leo, which ended up being a plan for myself, too. If I hadn't prepared that boat back then, I'd just be worrying now. Since I need to use it, Leo is coming along. I helped Leo load things onto the boat. He looked at the familiar boxes, puzzled. Sis, why'd you bring these here? Then, rummaging through them, surprised. Oh, Grandma's picture too. I came up with an excuse. My job's a bit demanding. You'll need to stay on this boat for a while. Seeing you light incense daily for your grandma, I thought I'd bring her over for you. These snacks are for you to eat on the boat. Hearing me out, Leo nodded, half understanding. You're so thoughtful, sis. Hey, let me do it. You spent all that money hiring me. Can't have you doing the heavy lifting. The snacks weren't heavy, so I let Leo handle it and went to the cabin to start the boat, checking its condition. The fishing boat was similar to Daniel's, powered by oil, not too fast, but functional. Once Leo loaded everything, I anchored away, taking the boat from the dock. Leo, having settled everything, came into the cabin, noticing we were quite far from the pier. Wait, sis, weren't we checking the cargo? Where are we going? Staring straight ahead, I smiled. Where else? We're going to get more goods. I chased across the choppy sea for 3 hours in the old fishing boat. Slowly, black waves began to roll in. Not long after, the sound of rain pattered against the deck. Hearing the wind howl outside, I sighed. What's meant to happen will happen. Braving the wind and rain, I steered toward the moving GPS location. After half an hour, I finally spotted Sophia's yacht and my fishing boat. The yacht towing my boat slowed down and eventually stopped. I picked up my binoculars and saw folks on the white luxury yacht setting up a ramp, hopping onto my boat. Under the ship's lights, each person held a club, and Sophia even had a rifle slung over her shoulder. Setting the binoculars down, I changed into a wetsuit and grabbed my Beretta, loading it. Once prepped, I grabbed an ice-cold Coke from the fridge, pressing it against Leo, who was drooling in his sleep nearby. Wake up! Time to work! The boy jolted awake from the chill on his face, and looking outside, he was about to fall back asleep, grumbling, "It's not even dawn yet." I pulled him up from the couch and pointed at the yacht with the lights on ahead. See that yacht? In a bit, you're gonna take the boat over next to it. Just skim by it real slow, stop for 10 seconds. Count in your head, and then head north until the weather clears up. Got it? Skim by, stop for 10, then go north. Until the weather clears, Leo repeated to himself. Then he suddenly realized, wait a sec, doesn't that yacht look familiar? No way, isn't that Sophia's boat? And the one behind? Isn't that your boat? How did it get dragged here? Sis, they stole your boat? Leo finally got it and was wide awake now. He looked at my shark suit in disbelief and asked, "You're not planning to get on that yacht, are you?" I slipped a gun into my bag. Yep. Leo knew I had my ways, but he was still nervous and hesitated. Sis, there's a lot of them. Are you sure you can handle it? I smiled at him. What, you want to come with me? He nodded. Sounds good. At least we can watch each other's backs. I chuckled. Watch each other's backs, my ass? Listen, from now on, you're not allowed to leave this boat. Got it? No buts. I'm hiring you here. I'm the boss. You want to get paid? You gotta listen to me. Just remember, once you get to where the weather clears, stay put. I'll come find you afterward. Leo saw how serious I was and finally threw up his hands. All right. You're the boss, whatever you say. Then he skillfully turned the boat toward the yacht. Leo wasn't the best sailor, but in this situation, I couldn't expect much. He managed to get the boat to brush past the yacht, and I quickly jumped off the fishing boat's deck onto Sophia's yacht during the 10-second stop. As Leo resumed his course, the tail end of the fishing boat bumped into the yacht, catching the attention of people on the other side. They noticed the boat and came out from the fishing boat, puzzled. Weird, a fishing boat out here this late? Yeah, we're outside the safe zone. Sophia, holding a gun, spat, glancing at the poorly driven boat. Whatever, probably smuggling goods. Don't just stand there. Smash everything up. Break all the glass. Leave nothing. With that, a burst of gunfire kicked off a chaotic party. As they wrecked my fishing boat, I calmly snuck through the yacht's rear entrance. There wasn't a soul inside. The more I explored, the more I was impressed. This yacht was both grand and luxurious. Stocked with so much fancy wine, It could make your head spin. I opened the fridge to find it packed with barbecue steaks and other meats, plus some pricey fruits. Sophia sure knew how to live it up. Too bad for her. Her party days are over. I started stuffing all the edible stuff into my bag as I wandered. Finally, I spotted a stash of cigars and pocketed them too. Call it shopping, had its finest. Eventually, I reached a locked door below deck. With the sounds of the sea, gunshots, and crazy laughter in the background, I stood 5 meters away and shot the lock. Bang! The shot went unnoticed in the chaos. The lock was busted, and I kicked open the door. The lights revealed a room packed with weapons and ammo cases. There was even fishing gear and diving equipment. Everything I needed. I raided the place until it was empty, while outside, the shooting and smashing continued. I climbed back to the deck. The storm was worsening, making it hard to see the people on the fishing boat. They hadn't noticed me. I squatted and opened the yacht's fuel tank, pulled out a thick rubber hose and stuck it in. Once gas reached the end, I dangled the other end over the side, standing up. I watched as the fuel gushed into the sea. Once done, I almost dove into the water when I spotted a few red gasoline tanks on the deck. I froze, narrowing my eyes. They must have planned to torch my boat after wrecking it. Frowning, I quickly grabbed the tanks and dove into the sea, swimming to the rear of my boat. I listened for another round of gunfire before shooting again and popping the safety ladder on my boat's side. Sophia, is it enough now? Sophia, is it enough now? The boat's got holes all over. Checked below deck? Yes, small space, just some junk. Burn it all later. Sophia, holding a gun, looked around before waving his hand. All right, let's get those tanks. When they moved off the fishing boat, I climbed back up the ladder. It didn't take long for someone to shout, Sophia, the tanks are gone. No way. Damn. It was that fishing boat. On deck, Sophia fired a shot in the air. A lousy fishing boat stealing my stuff? Let's catch up and try out the new guns from my stash. What about this wreck? Sophia glanced dismissively at my battered boat. We sailed far. She'll never find it. Let's deal with that boat first and come back later. With that, they cheered and dashed inside the yacht for weapons, seemingly uninterested in my trashed boat. Seeing them start to turn the yacht around, I stepped onto the broken glass in the wheelhouse. The glass was shattered and all the equipment smashed. Gusty winds and rain blew into the dark helm. I glanced at Sophia not far away before ducking under the seat into the yacht's navigation system. Olivia, welcome back to the Smart A33 Auto Yacht Control. Activate Pursuit Navigation Mode. Tracking mode has been activated. Please enter the target you want to track. I uploaded Leo's boat's real-time location into the yacht system. Soon the interface lit up in front of me. The radar showed Leo 10 miles northeast. At Sophia's yacht speed, they could catch up pretty quick. Unfortunately, the yacht was already running low on fuel when it got here, and now it's leaked most of what's left. If they head back now, they might get rescued with whatever's left. But if they choose to chase Leo, they're out of luck. The sea will eventually flood in, and when they try to call for help, the rescuers will be too busy saving people inland to bother with them. I saw some people running out onto the yacht deck, with Sophia leading. He must have realized his yacht had been stripped bare by now, huh? No fuel, no weapons, no food. I wonder how long they'll survive. From the C-33 cockpit, I had an infrared view beyond the fishing boat. Seeing Sophia's yacht still chasing Leo, I chuckled, spun the ship's wheel, and followed them. I tailed Leo's fishing boat for an hour. Leo was obedient, stopped as promised when clear skies came. No more. Looking at the clear sky above and the approaching dark clouds from the south, I steered my battered boat next to Leo's. I climbed out to the deck and tossed over a rope. Leo was already waiting on the deck. He grabbed and tied the rope right away. After checking out my riddled boat, he swallowed nervously. Sis, you really made it back. They had so many people you didn't get hurt, right? I hadn't slept all night. Leaning against the rail, I tiredly took out a pack of cigarettes and lit one. Don't worry, I got out fine. Seeing I was okay, Leo sighed in relief, then glanced around warily. What about them? They're not following, right? I shook my head. Nope, their yacht's leaking oil. Leo, being sharp, caught on instantly, admiration in his eyes. Sis, you're awesome. Leo then asked, so where are we heading now to get more supplies? I looked at the dark clouds far away and sighed. The end is almost here, and here he's still thinking about work. But speaking of supplies, something came to mind. Kid, have you ever had barbecue? Leo was leaning over the rail, looking puzzled. Be what, Q? An hour later, Leo was sweeping up shards of glass, while I set up a grill on the deck. The grill was pitch black with some foreign script on the side. Very fancy. Still, it was just a grill. I blew on the charcoal until it was blazing bright red and placed some thawed kebabs and prime steaks on top. Midway the roker go through cooking, something clicked in my mind, so I grabbed some cumin and chili powder and started sprinkling it all over. The kebab sizzled with oil, and the steaks dripped juicy goodness. Originally, Leo was cleaning the glass inside the cabin, but the enticing aroma drew him out to the deck like a curious pup. He leaned in, sniffing the air with no shame, so I gave him a stern look. Get any closer and we're having roasted brother for dinner. Leo rubbed his nose and backed off, circling the grill in awe. This looks so cool. And the meat? It's so thick, I've never seen anything like it. Of course, I'd swiped all the good stuff from Sophia's yacht. Probably there aren't any matchsticks left there now. While fanning and flipping the kebabs, I kept an eye on the steaks. Thick white smoke billowed from the kebabs, and through it, I glimpsed the looming clouds. Last time, a typhoon hit land from the South Sea. We're up in the North Sea, so it'd take another day before we felt it. Right now, we could enjoy the sun and sea breeze for this last barbecue. Soon, storm clouds would blanket the sky and block out the sun completely. I glanced sideways at Leo, still tending the grill under the bright sun. I reached out with a skewer of kebabs. Here, try my cooking. Leo ate happily at the barbecue, tears of joy in his eyes. Sis, I've never had lamb skewers this good. And this steak, it's amazing. Oh, and the kidneys, make sure they're well done, please. Watching Leo eye everything on the grill like a hungry squirrel with a mouthful, I sighed. So demanding. Before I could finish, Leo suddenly remembered something. He slid a steak onto a small plate and hopped back to the other boat. With a skewer in his mouth, I watched him nimbly hop between boats, landing smoothly on the opposite deck. Curious, I got up to watch as he went into the cabin and placed the plate by a makeshift shrine. He knelt and spoke to a picture frame for a while, then hurried back, grabbing another steak skewer and munching away. Seeing his thin shoulders under the overalls and cheeks stuffed like a chipmunk, I glanced at the opposite cabin and handed him the rest of the kidneys and chicken wings. Leo's eyes sparkled, his hands full of food, and he hesitated before asking, "All for me?" "Yep, all yours. Hurry up and eat so I can show you around." I was mostly done eating, so I took the kettle off the grill and brewed some green tea with typing hokwe I snagged from the yacht. Sipping to cut the grease, Leo beamed, tearing into a wing. Half an hour later, Leo almost choked while eating. I poured him a cup of tea to help, but he frowned after drinking it. Seeing he wasn't used to it, I quickly swapped it for a bottle of mineral water. A few gulps later, he let out a satisfied burp. Leo is pretty diligent. Once he was fed and watered, he started helping tidy up. I watched him clean the rack and swiftly gather the leftover coal ash. After soaking up some sun on the lounge chair, I got up and led him into the cockpit of the fishing boat. Seriously, what's left to familiarize when this place is smashed up like this? Leo wondered aloud. I lifted the driver's seat to reveal a hidden passage below. Leo was still rubbing his stomach and burping. Seeing this, his hiccup caught in his throat as he stumbled back, shocked. Whoa. Sis, your boat's got a secret passage. As the passage opened, an AI voice chimed in. Olivia, welcome back to the Smart A33 fully automated yacht cockpit. Humidity adjusted to 40%. Indoor circulation and purification system activated. Oxygen levels normal. Simulated sunrise lighting system activated. Yacht self-powering system, all good. Leo widened his eyes in disbelief. Sis, this is like something out of a movie. I chuckled, showing him around every nook and cranny, especially pointing out the media room and gym. I found a few hard drives in the media room's drawer, picking one labeled Online Classroom. You wanted to study, right? This has all the tutoring videos from elementary through college. Knock yourself out. Then I took him to the gym. You're looking a bit scrawny. Work out when you've got some free time. There's a TV on the wall, and this hard drive's got workout tutorials. You can follow along as you train. Leo now held another hard drive. Then I showed him the kitchen. This is the microwave, that's the steam oven, and here's the grill. Flip it up and it's a stove. Cutlery's in the cabinet, ingredients in the fridge. Let me know if you need anything. I added some extras. Oh, this tablet's got recipes in case you need to learn cooking. Leo found himself holding a tablet too. After the tour, I brought him to a bedroom, pointing to one with its own little bathroom. You'll stay here. You can store clothes under the bed, shower in the bathroom, and all daily necessities are included. Just tell me if anything's missing. I eyed him up and down, pretending to open the wardrobe, but really pulling out some sport quick dry clothes from my stash. They're all one medium size, cheap in bulk, and if they get worn, they can still be used as cleaning rags. Weather's just right for these. Pick any color you like from these 5. After going over everything, I looked back at Leo. He stood there, dazed, clutching the pile of stuff. He looked at me, then gazed around, finally blinking in bewilderment. Sis, am I here to work? Where's the cargo? I stood there, stunned, then smacked my forehead. Turns out I forgot to mention the rain issue. I quickly backed up a few steps. Wait, don't get the wrong idea. This is... Seeing Leo's intense stare, I stopped my explanation. If I told him now, he might not believe me. I thought for a moment and said, transporting goods, you gotta stay on the boat sometimes. All the cargo goes with my uncle. I didn't expect Sophia to swipe my boat, so I brought you along to help retrieve it. Let's call my uncle, have him send over the goods, and you can start work. Pays from yesterday. Sounds good. Leo, being a bit slow on the uptake, seemed to only catch on to the stolen boat. Uncle. Same pay. He finally relaxed a few. I thought you were going to have me living here? I pulled out my new Chinese phone and made a satellite call to Uncle. You brat, finally calling me? It's stormy here at the dock. If you don't come for your goods soon, I'll toss them. Hearing him, Leo's eyes widened. Uncle, don't throw them out or I'll be out of a job. Leo, why were you with Olivia? Olivia called me to help with the cargo, and next thing I know, her boat gets stolen out to sea. Uncle paused. What? You brat. Pick up the phone. I quickly chimed in. Uncle, it should only be drizzling at the dock, right? Can you swing by and back us up? The boat's dragged out and wrecked. I need help bringing it back. You brat, why'd you even buy that wreck of a boat? You're always getting me into things. I got fish to sell, Come on, Uncle. Have a heart. Your favorite niece and I have been floating around at sea for a day now. If a wave sweeps us away, you'll never see us again. I played the sympathy card as Uncle grumbled. All right, share your location and wait. He hung up after. I promptly sent over a satellite location and soon saw Uncle's boat move on the map. Lucky I got him a new phone ahead of time. Otherwise, communication would have been lost with the typhoon cutting in. Feeling relieved with Uncle's quick help, I glanced at Leo. He looked puzzled. Sis, if your boat's broken, how'd you manage to get over here? Uncle's fishing boat moves slowly. Judging by the timing, we'll probably meet just before the typhoon hits land. After calling Uncle, I kept checking the weather conditions from the deck. The sky was now packed with dense clouds, each like a giant egg-shaped stone, ready to drop. I knew those were mammatus clouds, a sign of an oncoming typhoon, just like last time. At this moment, the yacht's TV still had a signal. Leo, sitting on the couch, pointed at the TV. Hey sis, the TV says a typhoon's coming? Do you think Daniel will be okay? He had no clue about the impending doom, just staring blankly at the screen showing houses collapsing and cars and trees being swept away. Uncle's been out at sea for years. He's seen plenty of typhoon days. He'll be fine this time too. Yeah, you're right. Leo nodded, switched the channel, and started watching cartoons. Seeing Leo clutch a pillow and doze off on the couch, I forced myself to stay calm, went to the kitchen to make a cup of coffee, then turned back to the cockpit, eyes glued to the radar screen. By morning, the storm finally reached our part of the sea, but Uncle's coordinates, which had been moving since yesterday, suddenly stopped 5 kilometers from us. I couldn't sit still any longer and climbed up to the deck. As I stepped out of the yacht, I was immediately hit by the familiar yet shocking scene. Even though it was early morning, the sky was as dark as night. The creamy clouds had vanished, replaced by thunder and lightning. The sea wind howled furiously, rain lashed the boat like knives, creating a deafening noise. All around, mist rose from the sea, and massive black waves heaved like giant creatures. What really stunned me were the waterspouts miles away, piercing the sky and sea, moving slowly. Water spouts. I vaguely remembered surviving a similar experience with Uncle in the past, just barely making it when seawater flooded the land. Back then, we were in safe waters and never saw water spouts. Having so many appear at once now felt incredibly dangerous. A giant wave rolling and snapped me back to reality. Dark waves tossed our boat, and the two vessels collided with a loud crash. I steadied myself, watching the rising waves through the window, looming like black, menacing mountains. Luckily, before the storm hit, I moved supplies from the other boat over. Now, for safety, I had to cut the connection between the two boats. As I regained my balance, another huge wave came and lifted the other boat. It tilted alarmingly high in front of me, almost crashing onto our boat. I didn't hesitate and braved the fierce wind to untie the ropes connecting the boats. Once disconnected, the other boat was caught by the sea like a wild horse, drifting further until a distant waterspout swallowed it into its vortex. Seeing this sent chills down my spine. I had no time to waste and quickly grabbed the binoculars, searching the sea for any sign of Uncle. Finally, I spotted something faintly visible on the waves to the southwest. I squinted, trying to get a clearer view, when suddenly the boat tilted. I lost my footing, flying towards the gap below the railing. The sudden drop caught me off guard. Desperate to avoid the dark waves, I reached into a bag, but hadn't pulled out a life vest when a firm hand grabbed me. It was a strong, yet slim, hand. I looked up. It was Leo. What was he doing here? Did the crashing boats wake him up? Despite his small frame, years of odd jobs on the docks had made Leo strong. He gripped the door frame with one hand and clutched my arm with the other, using all his strength. The storm was intense and the deck slippery. I saw even Leo was struggling, so I decided to let go, planning to swim back. But just as I was about to slip, Leo tightened his grasp. I looked at him in disbelief. Let go. I've got an oxygen tank. I'll be back. Don't talk crap. With waves like these, even a miracle won't save you. Seeing his hand barely holding the door, I panicked and reversed my grip, trying to pry him off. Just as both our hands parted, another wave rolled us. The boat shifted again, and with the momentum, we both tumbled back into the cabin. I held onto the oxygen tank, caught up with Leo. Still dazed, I quickly pulled myself up and dragged Leo into the yacht, jumping in after him. Finally, safe inside, away from the storm's roar, I collapsed on the stairs, exhaling deeply. I hadn't even caught my breath when Leo grabbed my shirt collar. Sis, at least let me know if you're going out. If I hadn't gone looking, you might be gone. I stayed silent, letting him tug my collar. If he hadn't grabbed me when the waves hit, I'd probably be in the sea by now. Even though I had a plan, Leo didn't know that. His desperate attempt to save me filled me with a mix of gratitude and guilt. Sorry, it's my fault. Leo finally let go, turning to wipe his face. What on earth is happening outside? Why the sudden storm? And those water spouts? Grandma mentioned them, but I never saw them this close. It's terrifying, feels like Doomsday. I paused. It's caused by the typhoon. How long do you think it'll last, sis? I tossed him a towel. It shouldn't be too long, but now's not the time for that. I think I might have spotted Uncle's boat. Leo immediately stood up. Where? I walked into the cockpit, turned on the screen, and pointed between two water spouts moving closer over there. Leo stared at the dreadful water columns, then back to the shifting radar signals. He swallowed hard. Can Daniel's boat outrun those things? I shook my head. A fishing boat trying to escape the area of two water spouts was just a pipe dream. Leo was anxious. What do we do? I stayed quiet for a bit, then entered the other person's location into the system and switched to tracking mode. We'll go get him. Even with my yacht, sailing in this weather was tough. But thanks to its powerful system, we could slowly get closer to Uncle's location. Leo kept trying to reach Uncle on the phone, but there was no answer. What now? Daniel's not picking up? Maybe he's busy steering and didn't see his phone. I gripped the wheel tightly, battling the waves, my eyes glued to the radar. We were halfway there when a giant wave came out of nowhere, pushing us back several hundred meters. I watched in horror as the two waterspouts started closing in on the boat, caught in the storm. I broke into a cold sweat but stayed focused on my goal, steering the boat towards them. If Daniel could just get out of the waterspout's path, I could rescue him. But then the worst happened. The water spout suddenly sped up, rushing toward the boat. The boat didn't make it out in time. Soon the two waterspouts merged into a larger one and engulfed it. I pounded the console in frustration, feeling a sharp pain in my arm. Looking down, I saw Leo gripping it so hard his nails dug into my skin, almost drawing blood. His eyes were red and full of disbelief. "Sis, that boat. Is it Daniel's?" I sat down weakly, staring at the vanished coordinates, and said nothing for a long time. Daniel had practically raised Leo, so it wasn't just pain, it was devastation. Watching the ship disappear into the waterspout, I didn't have the heart to lie. As the waterspout started moving toward us, I quickly turned the yacht the other way to escape. The farther we got, the less resistance we faced, allowing us to speed up. Once we were out of the danger zone, I leaned against the console, my mind blank. Day 3 of the storm, night. Finally, after 3 days, the sea calmed, and the waterspouts that had been chasing us disappeared. The satellite imagery was as bleak as before, with red alerts blasting on my phone about storms all over the world. When these red alerts ended, so would the typhoon on land. After that, there'd be no land left, and Earth's population would drop by 2/3. All that awaited us were endless storms. Day 4 of the storm, morning. Leo brought a glass of milk into the cabin. His eyes were red and dry from days of crying. He was still clutching my phone, trying to reach Daniel. He set down the milk and dialed the satellite phone again. All he got was the busy tone before the call disconnected. Despite the gray, stormy sky on screen, I focused on Leo, patting him. I was about to comfort him when the phone around his neck lit up. Suddenly, it rang. The screen flashed Danielle's name. Leo and I exchanged a shocked glance and answered, putting it on speaker. "Can you hear me?" "Hey, kid." Daniel's familiar voice came through. Leo and I were stunned. Daniel is alive. "Still no signal?" "The phone's been charging," Daniel grumbled. "Hello? Is anyone there?" I quickly picked up the phone. "Daniel, we hear you." "Kid, you hear me and don't speak up." "Where are you guys?" Choking up, I replied, "Where are you? Why are you crying?" "My boat's fine. What do you mean?" "I saw your boat get swallowed by the water spout," I faltered, and I thought, "No way. Both me and the boat are good." Daniel scoffed. Leo wiped his tears as we listened eagerly. "But who was in that boat we saw?" "I ran into a white yacht on my way to find you," Daniel explained. "A group of kids was flashing SOS signals. When I got closer, the lead girl pulled a gun on me. Had to fight her off before I got us out of there." Leo and I shared a look, wide-eyed. He had crossed paths with Sophia, but how did that happen given Daniel's route and our yacht's last known spot were over 20 kilometers apart? What happened after that? "Managed to dodge the storm and pop back, but the phone died on me. So I've been drifting, hoping to catch some signal," Daniel recounted. "Lucky you stashed a load of supplies. It's been a lifesaver. Took me days to find a charger because my phone was dead, but I finally did." Listening to Daniel rambling on, I felt a massive weight lift off me. "But sis, whose ship did we see then?" Leo asked. Racking my brain, I recalled that stormy chaos. The distance and the sky blocked our view. Something was off about those coordinates being so close but with Daniel safe. "Maybe Daniel... When exactly did your phone die?" "Be precise. Right after we drove those punks away. It just suddenly shut down." Now it all makes sense. According to Daniel's set path, there shouldn't have been any way to run into Sophia, but who knew the waves would push Sophia's yacht several kilometers away? And just after Daniel met them, his phone died, which was exactly when I noticed the signal disappear. So 3 days ago, the fishing boat Leo and I saw getting tossed into the air was probably Sophia's luxury yacht. When Daniel heard this, he started asking questions, and I immediately explained the whole thing about Sophia to him. Daniel got super mad when he realized they stole my boat and started cursing. Then, when he heard their boat might have been swept away too, he sighed, "Karma, everyone's got their own fate." I didn't want to dwell on Sophia's situation, so I immediately set sail to turn back. "Daniel, stay put. We'll come get you." "You're coming? Aren't you having trouble with your boat?" With a pinpointed location, it took us less than half a day to find Daniel. With my supplies, Daniel was living pretty comfortably. When he stepped from his fishing boat to mine, he looked around at all the damage and muttered, "These guys really are like locusts, nothing left behind." I laughed and opened up the hatch to the control room. As soon as the yacht entrance appeared, Daniel's eyes widened like saucers. He glanced incredulously between the passage below and me. It wasn't until Leo walked by with some braised pork that Daniel sniffed the air and hurried down the stairs eagerly. An hour later, Daniel was sitting at the table, picking his teeth and tapping them. "You really did a smart job with this fishing boat. There's an entire yacht hidden below. No wonder it sits so low in the water from the outside." I quickly replied, "I've been telling you to come over." "You have no idea. Seeing your fishing boat swept away, Leo and I have been crying every day for the past 3 days." Daniel looked at me skeptically. "I believe Leo, but you? Crying every day?" Leo snorted with laughter. I shot him a look, then grinningly turned to Daniel. "I swear." A few tears were shed. Seeing Daniel well fed, I immediately showed him around. From the bedrooms to the entertainment room to the gym, Daniel looked surprised, but not as over the top as Leo had been. When we finally got to the control room operations, Daniel's expression grew a bit serious. "Level with me. Did you pour all the inheritance your parents left you into this just for fun?" I shook my head. "Daniel, what if I told you I've lived through this once before?" Daniel furrowed his brow. "What, like a real-life comeback as Spider-Man?" I twitched my eye. "What do you read?" "I usually listen to audiobooks while captaining the ship. Look, I even got a premium membership." I glanced at Daniel's book list, then pointed to one. "Hunkering Down, The Apocalypse Guinea Pig Plan. The current situation is somewhat similar to this." Daniel squinted his eyes at it, checked out the synopsis, then looked back at me skeptically. "You're pulling my leg, aren't you? Little rascal, I almost lost my life coming to find you, and you're spinning tales. Don't blame me if I beat you into seeing your old man." I knew the strength of Daniel's fists. When he was younger, he was a sailor. After my family had some trouble, he quit his job to come back and take care of me and started fishing. Back then, there were always thugs at the port collecting protection money, but Daniel was relentless. He'd take on one alone or a whole gang. Those guys only wanted money, but Daniel didn't fear for his life. Daniel fought his way through the dock, and the thugs were terrified. They even started calling him boss whenever they saw him escorting me from elementary through high school. Now, Daniel's older, and if he were a decade younger, even the head bodyguard, Liam, could only match him. I sighed, knowing that inland flooding was on the way. I pulled Daniel into the living room and had Noah join us after he finished his work. I explained everything about the past life's apocalyptic seawater flooding. Daniel raised his eyebrows. "Are you saying this rain's not gonna stop?" Daniel raised his eyebrows. "Are you saying this rain's not gonna stop?" Noah looked stunned. "What? Land's gonna disappear?" Seeing them both dumbfounded, I shrugged. "That's the deal. If you don't believe it, we can head back toward land now. In 3 days, or even a month, you won't find any land." Daniel didn't buy it, turned around, and headed to the control room, setting course back to his dock on the satellite map. I didn't stop him. Daniel only trusted what he saw. So my boat dragged his prized fishing boat as we began our journey back to land. For the first 3 days, without seeing land, Daniel remained skeptical, insisting we might have gone the wrong way. But according to our path, we'd already passed the dock by about 10 kilometers and still hadn't seen a shore. After a week, Daniel saw only a building's rooftop sticking out of the water, along with various floating cone barrels and living items. His expression changed. "Leo, go wash some pears for your uncle." Leo didn't get it, but followed orders and went below decks. Following Daniel's serious gaze to the distant sea, I soon figured out why he sent Leo away. Ahead of us, a grim sight appeared as human remains floated closer, the waves softly pushing them. The scene was horrific, and as countless unrecognizable debris drifted by, it made me frown. I'd seen this plenty before, but a few years later, these sights were practically gone. Daniel avoided looking at it, keeping his eyes on the still raining horizon. After a long pause, he asked, "In that past life, how long did this rain last?" I answered solemnly, "It never stopped, not until we died." It rained continuously for 10 years. So you sold everything, all your properties, to stock up on supplies in that space of yours? Seeing me nod in silence, Daniel sighed as if he really accepted it. After a long pause, he rasped, "What about the government? No rescue?" I shook my head. "Land's gone. Everything's being rebuilt. There's no real government anymore. In the first few years, because of resources, it wasn't just pirates. Even naval ships from different countries fought. Regular folks were getting raided and had to join the military to survive. But it was rough there too. People fought over a piece of bread daily, being sent on dangerous missions with nothing but a rickety boat. Daniel went quiet for a while, leaning against the railing, staring at the gloomy sky still pouring rain. "Got any plans next?" he asked. "We can't flaunt our wealth. We'll run into more survivors. If my boat shows no signs of life, it'll stick out." "Planning to spruce it up a bit," I explained. "Two boats tied together. Anyone smart would raid mine first. Your boat just needs to look like it does." I glanced at my rundown boat, then at his well-maintained fishing boat, and it clicked. Even if my boat doesn't look worth the trouble, anyone smart would see through our worn-out looks and realize something's up. But with his boat there, people focus on it, leaving my stripped-down boat less of a target. "Let's move some of my stuff off the boat," I suggested. "As for Leo, let him hang downstairs. It's damp and hot out here and not good air. Better he stays hidden. Post-apocalypse can get dark back. Then we couldn't even get food, let alone a loan. Talk about rights. People got traded like currency, and guys his age drew attention. Even with guns and Daniel's skill, avoiding trouble was key." I admired Daniel's foresight, despite him not living through this before. I nodded and followed Daniel on board. Most of our supplies went into storage, with just some biscuits and fish left out. We drained all the fuel from the fishing boat and stored that too. No chance of anyone sneaking off with the boats. Day 37 of the torrential rain. Using our stockpiled supplies, the three of us found the highest point from the last time, just 10 meters beneath sea level, thanks to Daniel's diving. After confirming no other boats nearby, we anchored and started planning for the future. Daniel was a former sailor, so he understood weather patterns. He kept watching the shifting clouds, sketching and marking maps. "So we just holed up in one place before, didn't move around?" he quizzed. "Yeah, no fuel for the fishing boat." "We couldn't go far even if we wanted," I admitted. "And now with this boat, how far can we go?" he pressed. I stood tall. "Latest tech. Eco-friendly hydraulics. Always got power as long as we're moving. But your fishing boat, Daniel, once your fuel's out, it'll rely on mine for a tow." Daniel ignored my boast. Instead, he studied the cloud map and pointed at several clusters. "If we chase the gaps in the clouds, we might catch some sun. Most illnesses in the past came during constant rain. Our yacht had a sun simulation system, but after months, it got old real fast. Over the past month, I noted that rain eased overnight when temps dropped. Maybe heading north, chasing cloud gaps, could work," I noted. "It shouldn't be a worse choice, really." We decided to set out in a week when the cloud edge passed us by. Leo was indifferent to our plans. He'd seen too much during these times, even with Daniel and me often sending him away for his sake. He lost all family and kept their photos sacredly in his cabin. The loss of land didn't faze him. He felt lucky just to be aboard. His task was to learn anything maritime related. Daniel aimed to make him a capable sailor, teaching navigation and self-defense, prepping him if we were gone someday. Leo played along, studying in the mornings, working out with Daniel in the afternoons. He ate, drank, and didn't question the endless food supply. He even got into the kitchen tech, frequently watched tutorials, and tried new recipes. The results were mixed, good ones praised by Daniel, and flops passed to me with fake compliments. This constant praise improved his skills. By Daniel's birthday, Leo baked a cake, a true achievement. He managed to bake 4. 2 were mishaps, 1 was a biscuit. I could have told him I had plenty of ready-made cakes, but Daniel's joy eating Leo's lumpy mess was worth it. So I just munched on his cake fails, praising along. In our mostly peaceful days, we occasionally encountered yachts, fishing boats, and even Navy ships. If they seemed too threatening, we'd just leave. Once during my watch, a fishing boat docked nearby at night. The would-be raiders usually skipped my shabby boat and went straight for Daniel's. It was late, and I didn't bother waking Daniel. I just watched them on the security cameras doing their thing. We drained all the fuel from Daniel's boat. Aside from a few fish and some worthless stuff, there's no way they can sail off. Sure enough, not long before dawn, a group of people left the boat, clearly disappointed. Dealing with minor thieves on regular fishing boats is manageable, but warships are a whole different ballgame. In my past life, I had experienced it firsthand. Those guys on the warships would have tricked anyone alive into going with them, calling it rescue when it was just forced labor. Many people were coerced to die for supplies, getting barely enough food to survive, while most of the resources were snatched by higher-ups. Being a laborer was one thing, but they also forced you to fight. Wars between warships left a trail of death. If you took down an enemy ship, the loot went to the people on top. The ones below risked their necks and didn't even get scraps. Try to escape, and you'd probably be tossed into the sea. If those guys found Leo, it'd be a nightmare. To avoid contact with warships, we'd shut down the yacht's power system ahead of time, and the three of us would hide below, playing dead. Without a signal, the warship wouldn't be interested in a drifting old fishing boat. There are a bunch of those floating around. At most, they'd send a patrol to Daniel's boat to check for people. Sometimes they'd just pass us by without a glance. Thanks to the yacht's hydropower, we never faced a situation where we couldn't move, at least not until the clouds cleared and we could sail. But even then, we were cautious. Ships with functioning power a few years in meant they were usually taken over by stronger folks. If you saw a moving boat on the water, it was either top tier, powerful, or about to get pummeled. Fourth month of heavy rain. After relentless days and nights of sailing, we finally saw the first sunlight since the apocalypse. It was just a few minutes, but those beams breaking through the thick clouds moved us deeply. With the sea full of danger, Leo hadn't stepped on a fishing boat in a long time. While he stood there with his eyes closed, soaking in the sunlight, Daniel and I packed up the remaining supplies on his boat, restocking what needed to be restocked and clearing out what needed to go. Dragging the fishing boat was a big strain on the yacht's power. I knew that boat was Daniel's pride and joy, so I never complained. We just slowed down. No big deal. But slowly, we started losing the sun. One night, Daniel studied the cloud map and said we should ditch the boat. I was about to protest, but Daniel cut me off. We've run into a lot of survivors lately. One boat is fine, but two, together? Way too noticeable. But isn't our plan to divert attention? If we ditch the boat, we'll be faster. No need to divert anything, right? Daniel had a point, and I couldn't argue. I understood his concerns. 3 days later, we ran into 3 packed fishing boats on the sea. Daniel and I were trying to make his boat look lived in, smoking on deck at night. Before we could put out our cigarettes, some boats approached us fast. Daniel and I squinted at the newcomers. He grabbed a rifle from the cabin while I reached for my Beretta 92. Oil lamps flicked on their boats, and we could barely make out the girls staring at us, wide-eyed. Young guys, albeit looking rough after continuous rain. They were night and day compared to well-cared-for Noah. Each boat had 5 or 6 sturdy men, hauling girls onto the deck like they were merchandise. Daniel and I glanced at each other, immediately sizing up their business. These men seemed non-threatening, making small talk about coming aboard, a trade for cigarettes. But in truth, they wanted to strong-arm us for our stuff. Surviving in this world was hell. Without a labor force to dive for resources, you were dead weight, likely tossed out. If you couldn't swim, you were bartering fodder, nothing more. Daniel and I weren't dumb. Cigarettes were gold, worth 5 pounds of flour now. Us smoking openly screamed, "We've got supplies!" If we even flashed a biscuit, these guys would likely lose their minds. No way we'd give them smokes. Daniel didn't flat out refuse. He stayed on deck, keeping them chatting about trade. His hand signaled me to go start the yacht and bolt. Since Daniel's boat blocked the little one, they didn't notice when someone slipped away. I spun around and dashed to the yacht. Inside the cabin, I turned on the boat cameras. The conversation outside got heated. They started dragging people onto Daniel's boat. Daniel excused himself to fetch their goods, ducked into the cabin, and while they set up planks, jumped to my boat, cutting the tether. I knew Daniel was serious about ditching the boat. With no time to waste, I fired up our boat and sped away. We sailed 10 kilometers under the cover of night until their boats disappeared from view. Leo woke up, puzzled by our late-night activity. Neither Daniel nor I mentioned the scuffle above, only that we ditched the boat because it was slow. Leo wasn't surprised. We'd seen plenty of abandoned boats before. Seeing no harm, he yawned and went back to sleep. Since Daniel ditched the fishing boat, we'd been moving a lot faster. If we're lucky, we'll get a few days a month without rain and maybe a few minutes of sunshine. With good food and plenty of exercise daily, Leo is getting healthier. He's even grown a few centimeters, and his skin's a few shades lighter. He looks almost like a rich kid now. Leo soon wanted to join the duty roster. I didn't mind, but Daniel's no spring chicken. Switching between day and night shifts wore him out. He refused at first, but after we insisted, he agreed. Leo didn't disappoint. Once on a night shift, he spotted a warship approaching and quickly shut off the power. I found out when I got up for a bathroom break, and the lights didn't work. Seeing Leo get more alert and skilled, Daniel and I felt relieved. We thought these calm days would last, but trouble came soon enough. Our still-functioning boat drew attention after 3 years of rain. Despite our caution, we got tailed by a warship for over 10 days, until a fleet surrounded us. Initially, they sent small boats that we couldn't detect until their warship showed up. It was too late by then. They were experienced, blocking all our routes. As we started to use our last card and escape on the yacht, a warship came from the west, scattering the enemy with a fleet of fishing boats. We feared jumping from the frying pan into the fire. But then I recognized a familiar figure on the new warship and dashed out. Through the binoculars, I clearly saw Liam on the ship's deck. Meeting Liam again was unexpected. After the endless rain, he did as I suggested and got on a boat with some trusted folks. After surviving thanks to my supplies, a patrolling warship took them in. Different from most, Liam had military experience, quickly rising through the ranks, becoming an officer with his own small unit. A year ago, another officer led a mutiny. The conflict left both the leader and the rebel chief dead, allowing Liam to take charge. Unlike the previous leader, Liam wasn't ambitious about war. Maybe he'd seen too much loss, which made him focus more on resource foraging. By the time we crossed paths, his ship was barely operational. Had he not recognized our boat, he likely wouldn't have engaged the other warship. Years of separation made me cautious. I left Daniel and Noah on the boat and went alone to meet Liam. He was no longer the young bodyguard, but a calm leader. Sitting in his office, I noticed a few not-so-fresh apples in front of me. The fact that they had fruit after all these rainy years said a lot about Liam's status. Liam didn't look great, and his staff's skin had concerning marks too. Liam shrugged it off. Honestly, Noah, we've got about a month before we're stuck at sea. If I hadn't recognized that boat, we'd probably just settle somewhere. I was surprised. You're planning to settle down? Liam sighed. I don't have a choice. Even if I battle other warships, I'd only buy a few more years. Oil's underground, and eventually we'll all have to stop. I rubbed my fingers together. Haven't tried electric power? Liam shook his head. We have experts, but they've long estimated our ship's too big for it. I nodded, then hesitated before asking, what about their illness? Seeing I'd figured it out, Liam didn't hide it, rolling up his sleeves to show his arms. It's inevitable. Almost everyone on board has it, some worse than others. We've got medics, but resources are tight. Most meds go to newborns and mothers. Seeing the same red marks on Liam and his staff indicated a clear lack of fruits and veggies, leading to scurvy. Despite his rank, Liam wasn't taking extra out for himself. Just then, a few kids appeared at the door. They were skinny, eyeing the apples eagerly. Liam just chuckled, inviting them to take one. They politely each took a bite of an apple and left the core, bowing to thank Liam before running off. Staring at the apple core on the table, I looked questioningly at Liam. Liam came over, looking at the seashell like it was a treasure. I'm thinking of finding the right sea area, then trying to dry some soil for growing stuff. I want to see if I can grow fruits and vegetables. I nodded along. People like us saw the world when it was thriving, so we've kind of made peace with life and vegetables. I nodded along. People like us saw the world when it was thriving, so we've kind of made peace with life and death. But these kids, the ones born into these crazy storms, they haven't even touched soil, tasted candy, or seen ice cream. They haven't even had rice. I can't bear to see them never tasting fruit and ending up sick like us. I tilted my head, eyeing him up and down. Wait, you got a kid now? Liam laughed bashfully. Yeah, 3 months old. It's a boy. Seeing him like this, I stood up. Wanna show me? Liam patted my shoulder. Let's go. With Liam leading, I saw he kept the warship super organized. The upper deck was mostly tech folks, women, and kids, while the lower had sailors and fishermen. The ship even had a daycare, with kids living together whether they had parents or not. The moms with babies lived in a special room, all cared for by staff. Resources were tight on the ship, but the women and kids seemed to be in pretty good spirits. Liam's wife was gentle, living with the new moms despite her unique role. Liam waved at me while holding the baby, and his wife smiled, inviting me to take a look. I gazed at the tiny baby, feeling a soft warmth in my chest. But then, my eyes caught something. Some black bread on the nightstand by Liam's wife's bed. It was that black bread. Super common in the old end times, it was easy to store, but really hard. You had to dunk each bite in water to swallow it. Otherwise, you'd end up choking. Liam's wife saw me staring at the bread and seemed to get it. She turned and took out a soft, wrapped bun from a deep drawer. "Haven't eaten yet, have you? Here, have a little nibble." Seeing the well-wrapped but probably expired bun, I knew how precious this was for them. My nose tingled as I turned away and took a breath. Then I grabbed Liam, who was still soothing his kid to sleep. "Liam, I can help with the cultivation." As I left, with Liam looking kind of shocked, I pulled a few packets of brown sugar from my pocket and left them in the nursery. Then I quickly went back to my fishing boat to find help. Back on the boat, I told Daniel and Noah about the warship situation. Noah backed my decision instantly, while Daniel seemed deep in thought. You gotta know, anyone leading a warship isn't just average, you know? I got Daniel's cautious vibe and respected it. I know what you're worried about, but being adrift at sea can't last forever. Liam seems decent enough as a leader for now. We keep chasing the sun on the water. We end up, well, alone. I'd like to use his ship as a project to see if we can grow land crops. If resources are abundant and people aren't stressing about food, trade can thrive. Then, peace will settle in the seas, and manpower, resources, and technology can skyrocket. We'll then see more ways to survive on the ocean. What do you think? Daniel thought long and hard, then sighed. You can help them, but this boat can't join theirs. There's an abandoned fleet about 10 nautical miles away. Leave the stuff there for them to pick up. Daniel's cautious idea aligned with mine. We didn't want to expose the space thing. We agreed on it, and I didn't waste time. By night, I moved the soil, fruits, veggies, baby formula, meds, and even some survival items and livestock onto some deserted boats. The next morning, Daniel dropped me off at the warship, and I took Liam to the boats to get the supplies. Seeing so many fresh fruits, veggies, and even chickens, cows, and other essentials, Liam's eyes reddened with gratitude. He stood there shaky and speechless, wanting to ask but biting his tongue. Finally, he choked out, "For everyone, thank you." I shook my head and looked seriously at him. "Liam, I don't have a lot of power. I hope this stuff helps. You've got skilled folks on your ship. These things would just rot in my hands. Better if you try breeding and growing them. It's in fate's hands now." Liam shook his head repeatedly. "Noah, don't say that. You've been the one helping me all this time. Without you, I don't know if we'd—" I waved it off, not wanting to rehash old stuff, and glanced at the gloomy sky. "Looks like it's gonna pour. Best move the stuff first." So Liam quit the chat and got everyone moving the goods onto the warship. They had a special workstation set up so everything was properly managed. Once everything was settled and the babies had formula, I said my goodbyes to Liam. Unsurprisingly, Liam asked if I wanted to stay. The boat's bigger, more people. Maybe life would be easier. He trailed off, looking torn, and I just smiled. Think of me as out hunting for resources. If I strike it rich, I'll come find you in 6 months. Liam finally chuckled, quit pushing, and nodded. Take care, Sophia. Take care, us. I didn't go back to Liam's ship as planned. Like Daniel said, I couldn't just be a delivery boy of fortune. There's a lot of supplies, and if handled right, Liam wouldn't have to worry about the future. But if not, going back wouldn't make much sense. In the time that followed, Daniel and I taught Leo how to use firearms and gear, and even taught him how to dive. Sometimes we'd even dive together to hunt for supplies from the old days. Years later, we nearly circled the Earth, and our plan to chase the sun turned into a monthly routine. Along the way, we met a bunch of survivors. We even traded and exchanged experiences with some resource-rich naval ships and large cruise liners. Of course, we also met fellow sun chasers. One time, we stumbled upon another solar-powered yacht. The owner was a boy who had been stranded at sea for a whole year because of a yacht malfunction. When he saw us passing by, he tossed some ramen packs, hoping we'd help him out. Seeing the boy weeping dramatically on the deck, Daniel and I suspected a trap. We turned the boat around and fled. After a few kilometers, we noticed the yacht hadn't moved. That seemed odd, so we went back. It turned out the yacht hadn't moved an inch. If it were a trap, they'd have scammed other boats by now. We let our guard down and boarded the yacht with guns in hand. Sure enough, it was just this boy, all alone on this big yacht. Turns out he was a Doomsday enthusiast from a wealthy family named Finn. Initially, he stocked up just for fun in case of disaster. And guess what? It saved him when the storms hit. Unfortunately, he didn't know a thing about yacht repairs. So when the power system shorted, he was stuck at sea for a year. Oddly enough, he was super lucky and had never been attacked. Daniel was a pro at fixing things and quickly pinpointed the problem. Finn was so thrilled he almost cried, stuffing us with food as his way of thanks. We didn't need it and declined. After we spent a long time fixing, Leo called us back for dinner. When Finn saw that there was a little kid on board, he was thrilled and showered Leo with stuff from his boat, leaving him baffled. Once the yacht was fixed, we wanted to head off. But Finn stuck to us like glue. Following us everywhere we stopped, he stopped. We moved. He moved. Over time, Leo spent more and more time on Finn's yacht. And they became fast friends. Not many kids hung out with Leo, so neither Daniel nor I minded their friendship. Leo quickly fell into the friendship, having secret talks and even refusing to sleep on our boat. He'd insist on sleeping over on Finn's yacht. Every day, Daniel would bang on pots to fetch him back, only to find the two of them eating instant noodles and sausages. Daniel angrily took his prepared rib dishes back to our boat. Feeling it wasn't right, he decided to host a barbecue right on deck. The smell lured the boys back, and Daniel fanned a satisfied sigh of relief. Out on the ocean, the chaos of theft and murder lessened. Rumor was spreading about a naval ship that had transformed into a trade market. It seemed more ships were picking up the trend. Fights were down, and ships began exploring farming and breeding. Leo didn't have to hide on board as much and began to explore more. In winter of the 7th year of the storm, we were surprised to get phone signals again. Someone had managed to establish communication within specific sea zones everywhere, stations guarded by ships forming many nations. People researched hydropower systems until sea zones had numerous mobile fishing boats like ours. By the 10th summer, global signal was unified. People began studying weather patterns. Surviving experts analyzed satellite imagery and drew up predictable rain-sun schedules for each sea zone. It made ventures on the water much safer. In winter of the 10th year, chasing the sun led me back to Liam's ship. Years had passed, and his ship had grown in scale. Countless fishing boats dotted around it, forming a massive network. You could see active trade even under harsh conditions, though at least people weren't stuck with tough black bread anymore. Near his old ship, I felt a wave of nostalgia. I saw Liam talking on deck and a small boy clinging to his leg. As sunlight peeked through the clouds, Liam seemed to notice, glanced my way, and waved. His expression shifted from disbelief to joy. Hugging the boy, he pointed at me and ran down the stairs. Watching the former broken man, now standing healthy in front of me, I reached out with a smile. "Liam, long time no see." Liam grinned back, swept me into a hug, and clapped my shoulder, tears welling up. "Long time no see."